Hi guys, it's Karen from the Beyond IVF Baby channel. I'm so glad you're here. So today I'm going to discuss my successful winning protocol after 9+ years on the fertility journey. So this is what I did. I started working with the reproductive immunologist, Dr. Kwa Kim, and her associates. I worked very closely with Heather. And for probably 4 or 5 years, I was working with them to have my baby. And what we did was, for past couple of years, I was on a low dose thyroid medication and low dose, what is it called? Metformin. And at various times, Levonox, extra hormones to support pregnancies that didn't last, and even anti-inflammatories. So that was part of my protocol. So before I flew to the Czech Republic for IVF, I prepped with them. I actually flew into the Chicago area so that they could take some tubes of blood. They provided me with a lot of samples of Rayos, which is the gentler form of prednisone. I find it a lot more tolerable. I got a whole bunch of Levonox to be prepared. And what else did I get? That was probably the bulk of what I needed from them. And we did some, I think, ultrasound scanning maybe again prior. So I flew in to Europe, had a couple of days in Iceland before I was in the Czech Republic. And basically there, what I did was, I think I hadn't had acupuncture for a while. So I found a fertility acupuncturist and I did acupuncture a couple of days before the transfer, just because it had been so long. Now, the goal was to do acupuncture the day of as well as after, but that actually did not work out. So that's a long story, and that's going to be saved for another day. So I did have some acupuncture, not the day of transfer, but I had it the week of transfer, like a couple of days before. I also did massage. In the Czech Republic, they have Thai massage at the 4 or 5 star hotels. So I was looking to see what can I do to help relax. So that was something I did. I did a massage before, and instead of doing acupuncture after, because I completely missed that boat, I ended up just doing I think a foot massage or some kind of massage after the transfer, at least once or twice after, before I knew if I was pregnant or not. So those are the things I did. Now, some of the other things I did that were part of my protocol included, I thought it would be helpful to do PRP. Since the price came down substantially when the CNY Fertility Clinic offered it, and even better, the newest at that time was the Sarasota Clinic. I think within a month, I was going to plan on going to Atlanta for it, but I was able to just, drive and go to Sarasota, which was much more convenient. So I did the PRP, uterine PRP, again, probably a month prior to the transfer. And then what else did I end up doing? I ended up learning and doing Reiki. So that was something that you if you learn it, you can do yourself. It's kind of, well, I wouldn't say it's like yoga, but it's Eastern. So in that sense, yeah, it's more in the realm of like a yoga, and it's something that you can do yourself. You can learn certain things you can do with a practitioner, and then you can do that. I also had worked with a fertility coach, with the group coach prior, and I think that was extremely helpful. And what you will probably, come to realize if you've been on the journey for any time is that you lose your positivity. And, you can say, this time my transfer is going to work out. This time I'm going to have a successful pregnancy. But when you have so much failure and losses, you're not going to believe it. So what is very effective is, instead of going, this, this pregnancy is going to be a lasting pregnancy, or anything that, you're saying that you might not totally believe, you need to turn it around into a what if statement. So, for example, what if this time I have a successful pregnancy? Therefore, it's positive, yet it's more believable to you because, yeah, there is a possibility after having, 10 losses. What if this time I have a successful pregnancy? There's a possibility. So I think that was extremely helpful on my journey. Let's see, what else did I do? Okay, so working with the reproductive immunologist was big for me because we knew I had inflammation. We learned I had other issues, like I could be more prone to blood clots. I have like a condition called API. You'll learn some of these things just through genetic testing, like the 21andMe or whatever the heck it's called. Like, most people have done some form of that. You'll learn a lot of things that could impact your fertility, and I learned that's something I need to do. Now, be forewarned, with Dr. Kwa Kim, they did reduce the number of insurances they were taking, so I don't know if that has changed. I know there's been some recent movement in terms of a couple of the long-term practicing partners left. So I've heard on Facebook, on the group, it's a little bit more chaotic, which that was not my case at all. So hopefully things have settled down. But regardless, know that it will take a long time to get your initial appointment. There's a long wait. Your first appointment will have to be in person, and they will take a lot of tubes of blood. From then on, they will work with you remotely. Now, besides the metformin, the low-dose thyroid, the Rayos, which is the gentler form of prednisone, I was on high doses, and I was monitored throughout the pregnancy to increase the doses when necessary at a specialized lab. So you have to FedEx your blood to them, and you have to do it quite often. I would say at least monthly, maybe sometimes it was every other month if it was spread out a little bit more, but it was a lot. Now, for women in my predicament with high inflammation, other risk factors for recurrent miscarriage, they recommend something called IVIG. Well, my insurance was not willing to cover it, and it's extremely expensive. I think it's like $2,000 an IV. And that's even before the nurse, if you do it the proper way and have an RN do it instead of doing it yourself or having your husband or partner do it, it's very expensive. So that was something that wasn't going to be possible. So instead, I did something called Itralipids, and you can find that being prescribed by, where I live now, even you can get it from an acupuncturist. An RN would give it, of course. But if you are struggling and you think that's something that's going to be helpful, there are clinics like CNY in the US. They embrace a lot of the reproductive immunology concepts without doing, another subspecialty with just an RI protocol. It could possibly work for you, and you might want to consider it while you're waiting, or just see if it works, and you could cut out seeing an RI exclusively. So I did some treatments, the amount you're supposed to do. I think it's up to 12 weeks, and you start it, I believe you start it right after implantation or with confirmed pregnancy. I think in my case it was after the implantation. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's how it was. I did have a little bit of a lasp because I had traveled after my transfer, and I was not able to readily have this done in Germany. There were very few places that did it. It would have been a journey just to get there. And since I wasn't a patient, it wasn't like, oh, you can just simply become a patient and get this treatment. They wanted to, like, you know, conduct a lot of tests and like really have you as a patient, not like a 1 or 2 time thing. So I had to have a little bit of a lasp in between my intralipids. When I came back, I still did some Reiki. I still did my positive what if statements. Of course, I spoke to my baby to be and very positively and things like that. I would also say, just to make sure you have a complete rundown of my entire protocol, it was prepping with anti-inflammatories, and Levonox is included in that mix. And I'm talking about twice a day Levonox. Doing low dose naltrexone up until close to delivery. Levonox was up until like the last, I think, week or so, and then you're switched to heparin. And then I think after, for maybe a couple weeks after the pregnancy, then you go back to Levonox, and then you just, you end it. And I had to be on additional hormones, I guess because of my age and stuff. They weren't happy with what the placenta itself was producing, so I had to do additional hormones in the form of support. And that was pretty much the gist of all the different things I did that led me up to a successful delivery. However, we did have, some scares. For instance, I can say during, the 2-week wait, I did have some spotting. So it was like, I never had that before with any other pregnancy. So I thought, hormones are dropping. This is probably not a good thing. But it ended up possibly being implantation spotting. Another thing, I actually had a cold during, right after that window of implantation. So I was like, a little bit worried about that, but it ended up being, just a cold, nothing, extreme. Apart from those things, I did a lot of traveling, as I said. So there was that, a lot of activity. So that was good. I don't think I overdid it, anything like that. And I think that's pretty much the gist of the different types of things I did to try to give myself the best chance possible to have success. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. What I would like to close off with saying, if there's anything you haven't tried that you think might be a good try, if you're in the US, I do encourage you to check out CNY, because the uterus PRP, I think it hits everything. I think it's actually probably more effective than just ovarian. Of course, ovarian makes sense because you're trying to help get more eggs, and you're trying to help get more, reduce inflammation and all that kind of stuff, improve AMH. Whether or not that would help or actually happen for you, I think it is anti-inflammatory. So I think that's a plus side for the PRP. As for everything else, you may or may not have high inflammation levels, so you may or may not need medications like Rayos or prednisone. But keep in mind, in Europe in particular, I can't speak for the US, for women over 40, they tend to like to give those medications because they just know with age, more inflammation. And inflammation is a factor that makes it more difficult to get pregnant or stay pregnant. I also incorporated a lot of fresh air and exercise while I could. Again, there were times once I came back home, I had to stop. I stopped the gym, and I had to even reduce my walking because there was blood that didn't come out, but it was like in the uterus, and they wanted to see that go away. So there were times where, I had to take it easy, so to speak. I was never on bed rest, which is good. And also towards the very end of the pregnancy, we had to induce because my levels of fluids was going down in one area, and it wasn't explainable, like why did that suddenly happen, because I was being monitored by a high risk OB. But anyways, just to give you the gist of it, wanted to wish you a happy holiday, and encourage you to keep up hope and keep up a good attitude and patience that your time is coming next to be a mom. And with that, goodbye, and I hope you have a happy holidays, whatever you celebrate.